Today we're going to take a look at the top 10 primary weapons in Destiny 2 right now, this moment, today. I know the Forsaken DLC is just around the corner, and with that, everything's pretty much going to be flipped on its head, but I like doing these videos because it preserves a little bit of the history of Destiny 2. My list will be based around casual play, competitive play, tournament play, PC, and console. Not going to be just doing a PC only, or a console only list, or a quick play only list. It's all going to be combined into one definitive top 10 list. And also remember that the list is my opinion. You can feel free to disagree. Just let me know what your personal top 10 is in the comment section, and maybe a reason or two why. Thank you guys. So without further ado, let's hop into this list. In the number 10 spot, we have the Risk Runner. Now I know some of you are already going to immediately question my judgment, but let me explain. It's actually really simple. It's 2 words. Dinkelberg. No, that's 1 word. That's a compound word. What I meant to say was Wormhusk. Isn't that a compound word too? Well, never mind that. 4 Arcstriders with the Wormhusk helmet is a very common team composition in the competitive playlist, and I run across it all the time. It's obnoxious how much I run into it. And so instead of complaining about it, I just built a counter. As I talk about the perks of the Risk Runner, this counter will be more apparent. So looking at the perks, we have a couple stock and barrel mods that aren't too important. What you should really be keen on is Superconductor and Arc Conductor. Essentially what it does is whenever you take arc damage, Arc Conductor procs. And then if you shoot an enemy with the Risk Runner and they're nearby another enemy, it chains lightning, you return ammo to your magazine, and if you pick up a kill, the Arc Conductor is extended. But that's not even the best part. When Arc Conductor is active, you take reduced incoming arc damage. So if you remember, just a couple seconds ago, I was mentioning that you commonly run across 4 Arcstriders with a Wormhusk helmet, and they really love to throw arc bolts. So if you have Risk Runner out and you get tagged by an arc bolt, well, you get Arc Conductor, you get the chain lightning to them, and the best part is, if one of their teammates spams a nade at you, it's going to do half damage. A cool thing about Risk Runner that not 100% everyone is aware of is that you can self-inflict arc damage to proc Arc Conductor. You can do this with a grenade such as a flux grenade, a skip grenade, or a pulse grenade. You can do this with a grenade launcher that has sticky grenades, shoot one on the floor, and then detonate it with your Risk Runner. Has to be arc. You can even do this with a sniper that has ricochet rounds by shooting a wall and making sure the bullet damages yourself. You may be thinking right now, Cammy, that's a very fringe thing to do. Who in their right mind would self-inflict arc damage just to take less arc damage? Well, in the case of flux grenades, what you can do is you can throw a flux grenade at a target, and using Top Tree Arcstrider, go in for the melee since a flux grenade is going to do that 110 damage. To combo with the 90 damage from the melee, you will be hitting them with your melee as the grenade detonates. You will be hurting yourself with the grenade while simultaneously getting your health back because, of course, you have a melee kill. And the best part about that is now you have full health, Arc Conductor's procced off of yourself, and then if they throw an Arc Bolt, pop a super, or anything like that, well, you still have Arc Conductor active, and you're going to take half damage. Also, while I'm thinking about it, there's a lot of people who really hate the feedback fence exotic on the Titan and think it's too powerful. Let me explain feedback fences. If a Titan is wearing the feedback fences and you punch said Titan, he will reflect arc damage onto the person who punched him. So in other words, if you punch a feedback fence Titan while you're holding Risk Runner, Arc Conductor is procced for free. This is especially useful on a top tree Arcstrider or a bottom tree Devour Voidwalker. Speaking of Devour, it's actually very, very smart to pair Devour with Risk Runner because, of course, you can take any sort of arc damage on purpose. It doesn't necessarily have to be self-inflicted. Someone could just be throwing a pulse grenade in your general direction. You say, I wonder what would happen if I touched that pulse grenade. And then you take a little bit of damage, proc Arc Conductor, pop Devour, and then go on a rampage with 3 or 4 seconds of Arc Conductor.
Zone C captured. Zone advantage is yours. I'll see why Ikora likes you. That's 2. 3 opponents down. Another one off the list. Your vigilance paid off. Now destroy them.
Well, that pretty much covers Risk Runner, but if for some reason you want me to make an uber in-depth guide of any weapon you see on this list, let me know in the comment section. I can talk about Risk Runner all day, especially the fact that its exotic name actually makes a lot of sense when you consider the playstyle. Just saying, but let's not waste any time. Let's move on. In the number 9 spot, we have the exotic weapon pairing of Sturm and Drang. To quickly talk about the perks, Sturm is a 110 RPM hand cannon which shoots 71 to the head. So what you gotta know, it actually kills people in 3 taps, contrary to popular belief that hand cannons do not 3 tap in Destiny. Sturm certainly does. But Sturm can do it a little bit better, because if you happen to pick up a Drang kill, that's the legendary associated sidearm, if you pick up a Drang kill, it overloads a bullet into the Sturm magazine, which is very, very powerful, allowing it to 2 tap.
Double down. Triple down. Look at them fall. Gains the lead. Hunters like you blaze a path for the rest of us. The rest of us.
Cue that clip from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Jesus Christ!
So if you're wondering why my teammates' footage is in the background, by the way, Drewski's channel, definitely check it out, link in the description. That is because he has the Sturm Catalyst, and I do not. I am not lucky. The Sturm Catalyst, I'm not going to say is necessary, but greatly appreciated because it boosts the range of the hand cannon, thus making it the highest in its class, and I believe the highest range hand cannon in general. But to talk specifically about why Sturm and Drang deserve to be on the number 9 spot, well, it's because this combo is very synergistic. If you get a kill with Sturm, it reloads Drang. If you get a kill with Drang, it not only reloads Sturm, but overcharges a very powerful round into the chamber. But that's not all. Get a kill with Drang and we'll throw in a Sham Wow in addition to your Sturm overcharge bullet. But really what happens if you get a kill with an energy weapon, any energy weapon, while having Sturm, it makes it so that Sturm, instead of hitting 71 to the head, is going to hit 73, thus changing the headshot body shot requirement. Instead of having to hit 3 headshots, you can now hit 2, on certain resiliences of course. So that alone already takes away one of the big negatives of using a 110 RPM hand cannon. Of course they're not as spammy, but not having to hit a single headshot is a pretty good deal. So when you use a hand cannon, you typically either pair it with a scout rifle for a very long range map, or a submachine gun, or a sidearm for a close range map. So I can't see anybody running 2 hand cannons. I can't see anybody running a hand cannon and an auto rifle because they cover the same distances. So it's natural that you pair Sturm and Drang together. Not to mention, Drang's already a pretty good sidearm on its own. It's got Rampage, so you can take out crowds of people. It's not as forgiving to mouse and keyboard users, but I myself find that as I use it at the beginning of the day and continue using it, my shot by the end of the day is pretty on point. And that covers Sturm and Drang, so let's move on. In the number 8 spot, we have Motion to Compel. That's a scout rifle. You'll notice right away that it doesn't fit the bill of an energy scout rifle because it's high impact, 150 RPM, it has kill clip, and it has moving target. The rest of the perks don't even matter. I mean, slide shot, you can get some utility out of it. Swap mag, you can get some utility out of it. Same with drop mag and extended mag. But the real bread and butter on this is moving target and kill clip. The first talking point about this weapon is its rate of fire and archetype. Well, here's the thing. It's 150 RPM, the same as a lightweight hand cannon, but the damage model is only slightly different. However, that doesn't really matter because the result is the same. 2 headshots, 2 body shots, that's a kill. But it can do you one even better, because if you proc kill clip, it's a 3 tap to the head. A scout rifle that can 3 tap. Now this weapon may not be on a lot of your guys' radar, but that's because I look at this weapon with a totally different perspective. I don't think of this as a scout rifle. I think of this as a very large hand cannon, one in which it zooms very, very far. And so if you want to get into close quarters duel with it, you need to be really on point because you have to travel so much further on your mouse mat or flick the thumbstick on your controller so much more to line up a shot in close quarters. In addition to the zoom making it hard to aim, the handling makes it very hard to acquire your target because it's a little bit sluggish. So these are the two main disadvantages. However, do not forget that you can hip fire if necessary. So if you land 2 headshots and you're a reasonable distance away, just hip fire for the body, because the body is a bigger target after all, and you're still going to kill them in 2 body shots. But as soon as you proc kill clip, go back to aiming for the head. So when trying to learn the skill of using a scout rifle in close quarters, keep in mind that flinch is going to be your biggest enemy. How do you avoid flinch? You avoid being shot. How do you avoid being shot? Well, start speccing into your mobility, and conveniently enough, this gun has a perk called Moving Target, which lets you strafe faster while aiming down sights. But enough about the talk of using a scout rifle in close quarters. That's not practical. You even see that in the background footage, I'm using an Antiope-D to pair with this gun so that I have some sort of close quarters weapon. But in a pinch, if you need to use this as a substitute hand cannon, you can certainly do it. You can certainly practice enough to do it. So now looking at this as a scout rifle, using it at its intended very, very long range, it's excellent. It's very, very good. Now, it will lose to a Graviton Lance in a straight-up duel. However, a Vigilance Wing, as long as you go outside of 45 meters, you should be able to out-TTK the Vigilance Wing if you're hitting your headshots. And I don't think it's a real fair comparison to compare it to Graviton Lance, since you have to give up your exotic slot to use Graviton Lance, thus opening maybe the use of a tractor cannon? I don't know. Just something to consider. And that's why it makes the number 8 spot. Yep, that's right. I finally genuinely put in the Fighting Lion. Now, normally the joke has always been, Cammy, you're going to put the Fighting Lion at the number 1 spot because you're good with it. Well, yeah, that's what I want to do, but I'll get shit for it in the comment section because not everybody can replicate what they see on the screen. I'm happy to say that after a copious amount of buffs to the Fighting Lion, it is now user-friendly to most people. So looking at the perks, note that Fighting Lion is indeed a grenade launcher that you can use as a primary all the time, not bound by power ammo pickups. It's been buffed so much that now if you get a kill with the Fighting Lion, it guarantees drops energy ammo from your enemy's corpse. This is in addition to the usual Fighting Lion perk, which is whenever you damage somebody with the Fighting Lion grenade, and then clean them up with any form of damage for the kill, it automatically reloads the Fighting Lion. And it gives you a free bullet from thin air, not from your reserves, so if you're perfect, you should never run out of ammo. One very cool but underrated feature of the Fighting Lion is remote detonation. And this is excellent because you can hold down the trigger as the grenade's sailing through the air, then release the trigger so that the grenade just detonates. So you can precisely put the grenade where you want it to blow up. Now, the reason I say that this is underrated is because most people compare apples to oranges when they look at Play the Game, a power weapon with the proximity detonation, or Prospector with the sticky grenades, and then compare it to the Fighting Lion, which has remote detonation. But even when given the choice of a Play the Game or a Sunrise grenade launcher, I know you guys have never heard of this one, I am choosing the Sunrise, because the Sunrise has remote detonation and does more damage than the proximity detonation of the Play of the Game, in addition to, here's where I'm getting to the point, in addition to, if you shoot a wall while holding down the trigger, the grenade will bounce off the wall. And then if you release the trigger, it'll blow up whenever you want it to. So to recap, if your enemy's behind cover, like hiding behind a rock for instance, yes, a proximity grenade will do damage. But if you can bounce a grenade off one of the adjacent walls or another piece of cover, precisely landing the grenade at the feet of the person standing behind the rock, and you do more damage, I would argue that remote detonation is better, with the little asterisk of course, you have to practice. You have to know the map enough to learn these angles to bounce the Fighting Lion into them. Luckily, with the recent buffs, you have a copious amount of ammo to waste learning all these potential angles. In its initial state, the Fighting Lion hit a measly 57 splash damage compared to its now 100 splash damage, in addition to a radius that is now 2 or maybe even 3 times larger. So straight up, you don't even have to aim like directly on top of them. You can just put it somewhere in their general direction, detonate it, and do any sort of damage. You can do 12 damage, 100 damage, 50 damage. It doesn't matter. The point is, if you damage them, they are not healing. And that is one very strong feature of the Fighting Lion that people overlook. But you can do even better. You can combine this with bouncing grenades around corners so that you can damage an enemy while you remain safely in cover. But you can do it even better again, because since it's a grenade launcher, it has perfect in-air accuracy. So you can be evasive while bouncing a grenade off the wall, while putting damage into an enemy. This is essentially having your cake and eating it too in the form of a weapon. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, other than the Forsaken's just around the corner, and if Forsaken wasn't around the corner, well, this gun would probably need a nerf badly. In the number 6 spot, we have the Redrix Claymore. That's the pulse rifle that is the reward for the competitive playlist. I'm not gonna lie to you, this gun is a bitch to get. It took my team about 30 hours, give or take a couple hours on the first week, but most of the teams and most friends that I talk to say that with a random group of friends, just always having a team, using your friends list to fill a team, it'll take a little while, a couple weeks. But if you're solo queuing, it could take most of the season, I think. Unless you're just the best player in Destiny. Which everybody in my comment section is, so I don't even know why I brought it up. What I'm getting at, though, is that since this is a difficult weapon to acquire, a lot of people just write it off as not worth it, or overrated. No, I totally disagree. This gun is not overrated in the slightest, because I feel like if you have the skill capacity to obtain the Claymore, then you probably have the skill capacity to use it to its fullest potential. And that's really where the weapon makes its place on the top 10 list. So looking at its perks, you'll notice that it is a 340 RPM high impact pulse rifle. This archetype is extremely forgiving with its headshot to body shot ratio. So already there, that's a thumbs up. It's also more effective at a range than other pulse rifle archetypes. So that again is another thumbs up. But the main perks it sports is Outlaw, which means if you get a precision kill, then you get a rapid reload. And whenever Outlaw is active, you get to use Desperado, which is after reloading while Outlaw is active, it increases the rate of fire significantly. So it already has a very forgiving archetype, but now once you increase the rate of fire significantly, you can just spam in their general direction and you're gonna get a kill. Now I'm gonna keep talking about Redrix, but I don't think I can do the mini review justice knowing that a perfect review of the Redrix Claymore exists. My teammate Drewski did one, my good friend Cool Guy did one. Check them both out, links in the description. In my opinion, there are two clear advantages to using Redrix Claymore over another gun. Number one, Redrix Claymore is legendary, so it opens up Fighting Lion, it opens up Risk Runner as you see in the background footage, so that alone is already awesome. The second thing is the Desperado perk. I don't mean just the increase of rate of fire. I think of it as a kill clip that you can take with you. With kill clip, you have to reload after a certain time frame of getting the kill, and then it lasts a couple seconds. Outlaw, on the other hand, lasts a couple seconds on its own, and then Desperado lasts a couple seconds on its own. So if you reload this gun with Outlaw active at the last possible second of Outlaw existing, well then you just extended your Desperado. This comes in super clutch in the Crucible because you can choose not to activate Desperado until you have full health. You can get a kill, proc Outlaw, and then pop a Devour, then reload, then get Desperado, then go on a tear. You can Worm Husk in between reloads. It's not like Kill Clip where you use it or you lose it. Speaking of that concept, if you don't get Redrix Claymore soon, you will probably lose the ability to acquire it. So my recommendation is start grinding now, start building a team, because clock is ticking. I have to get my second Redrix Claymore on console, because I really wanted to do that, since I want to play more console with you guys. If you want to firsthand take a page out of my book, I have made a guide for competitive, and I plan to stream most of my attempts for the Redrix.
Twitch.tv/CammyCakes.
That wasn't as ASMR as I thought. But anyhow, moving along here with the list. In the number 5 spot, we have the Dire Promise Hand Cannon. At a first glance, the perks don't seem that phenomenal. Lightweight frame, though, is very good. It adds an invisible +2 to your mobility, and it increases your sprint speed. In addition, the 150 RPM kills slightly faster than a 140 RPM. In my experience, you can get away with any combination of the sights and middle perks. You can go extended mag, you can go steady rounds, you can go whatever you want. I typically go for handling. For those of you who haven't heard of the uprising of popularity of this hand cannon, you probably have no idea why it's even on the list, but I'll go out and say it. This is one of the most consistent guns in all of Destiny. Also, thank you to my teammate sides, link in the description, for giving me a Dire Promise clip because I deleted mine. I deleted mine jokingly, knowing that I could get it back later in the Forsaken DLC, just because I feel that the gun is a bit of a crutch because, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, the gun has basically no recoil on PC. Almost none whatsoever. It's point and click adventure. So in an effort to constantly improve my skills, I deleted it so that I can use guns that are a lot more unwieldy, thus making my recoil compensation and my aim better at the same time. But unfortunately in Destiny 2, unwieldy doesn't necessarily mean high risk, high reward. Sometimes this game, actually most of the time, this game seems to have a low risk, high reward, like in terms of Graviton Lance and Vigilance Wing right now. Now there are some exceptions, like a lot of the weapons that came before Dire Promise on this countdown, but majority of the time, low risk, high reward is typically the style of Destiny. But here's the cool thing. A common trend among top players is they will actually use Dire Promise because it is so consistent, because it keeps their overall gameplay consistently well. Versus me, like yes, I do have the capabilities to use a 110 hand cannon and hit majority headshots, but if I even miss once, Dire Promise is better. And it's less likely you're going to miss with the Dire Promise. So they have a 100% accuracy rate or something close to that, and I have a 75% accuracy rate. I still think the scales tip on Dire Promise, unless you're an aimbot. To put it in short, Dire Promise you can use well no matter how you're feeling, whereas something like Redrix Claymore, a 110 RPM hand cannon, Fighting Lion pre-buff, I had to be feeling really, really hot that day. The shot had to be looking good for me to use that gun to its utmost capabilities. If consistency doesn't appeal to you that much though, there is another option that I would actually say ties this gun in the countdown, that being the Midnight Coup. It's another 150 RPM hand cannon, this time with the perks Outlaw and Rampage. And the recoil pattern on that gun is horrendous sometimes. And I only say that because I'm comparing it directly to Dire Promise. It's manageable, but why manage recoil when you can just use Dire Promise? And that's the whole premise of what I'm bringing up here. I like to stick to a rule of one Midnight Coup per team if you're going to go all hand cannons. Because if all of you are using Midnight Coup, you have to manage recoil, one of you might miss. And only one of you can pick up Rampage on a kill, turning it from a 4-tap to a 3-tap headshot on certain resiliences. So the best way to do it is to have 3 Dire Promises so the majority of people land their shots, and hopefully, if you're lucky, have the Midnight Coup man land the killing blow, thus proccing Rampage, allowing him to push up and 3-tap somebody. Oh yeah, and for this background stream footage, I am using a controller, so just goes to show that on controller, Dire Promise is still probably your best option. I feel like I'm rambling too much about Dire Promise, so let's move on to number 4, the Vigilance Wing. V-Wing is an exotic pulse rifle that instead of shooting a burst of 3 bullets, it shoots a burst of 5 bullets. So you have to commit more to your burst, but the trade-off is a lightning fast time to kill, 0.83. Combine this with the fact that if a teammate dies near you, you start regaining your health. It's a very, very good weapon, a force to be reckoned with. It's funny, as I get closer to the top of the countdown, I talk less because it's almost universally agreed that these weapons speak for themselves. In my opinion though, the best part about Vigilance Wing isn't the fact that it can kill in 0.83 with a 2 burst, it's the fact that if you miss the 2 burst, it still kills very, very fast with an excellent body shot to headshot ratio. So saying this thing is spammable is an understatement. This is not a precision weapon. You just aim it in their general direction and hold down the trigger because with the catalyst, you now have full auto. Where the Vigilance Wing really shines is in the competitive playlist because it's elimination. A lot of the times in elimination, a firefight requires full commitment or you just straight up lose a teammate, which leads to the inevitable loss because they have a man up and you do not. So V-Wing rewards you for standing near your teammate and shooting next to your teammate, because if your teammate dies, you get full health, and if you clean up the kill, you can immediately move on to the next person who might be weak from an additional teammate of yours. So if you're using 4 Vigilance Wings in Trials of Osiris or the competitive playlist, you're going to be having a pretty good time if you're even semi-coordinated. But the thing is, the Vigilance Wing isn't the be-all end-all. It does have a weakness. Hand cannons, or any weapon that does a lot of damage in one single bullet. Because what you want to be doing when playing against a Vigilance Wing is to hug cover, peek out, put a shot in, and get back in cover as quickly as you can. They should be in between a burst, whereas you did all of your damage in one single shot. You should have the advantage. If you're using a long-range weapon, you want to stay outside of 45 meters. That's where Vigilance Wing starts to experience drop-off, thus requiring more than 2 bursts. That's really all I have to say on Vigilance Wing. It's a fantastic weapon. It really, really is. In the number 3 spot, we have the Ikelos SMG. You can get this from killing bosses in the Escalation Protocol. Looking at the perks, you have a choice between Grave Robber, which is excellent because you typically melee when using an SMG, or Threat Detector, which improves reload stability and handling when enemies are in close proximity. This is a staple of the competitive playlist. It has Seraph rounds, which are armor-piercing rounds and ricochet rounds, and Disruption Break, which is whenever you deplete the shield of an enemy, whenever you break their shield, they take more kinetic damage. In my opinion, the Hero's Burden used to be the King SMG, but then the Ikelos SMG was created. And Disruption Break is good enough on its own, especially for team play. Like, a lot of the times you think it's going to be a very helpful perk, like you shoot them, break their shield, and switch to a hand cannon to shoot them once in the face. But a lot of the times at half health, you're just going to outright kill them anyway. So what's good about Disruption Break is you can deplete their shield, they can run away, right? They can recover, and then when they re-engage the fight or when you chase them down, they have full health, but their disruption broke. So now you can kill them in less kinetic shots. There's also an RNG factor with this gun in the form of Seraph rounds because they're armor piercing and ricochet. So there's a small possibility that you shoot somebody, the bullets go through their body, hitting a piece of cover or a wall behind them, and then the bullets outright turn around and hit the same person you're shooting at. This could explain some of those very questionable melts where you just seemingly instantly die to an SMG, but it could easily also be connection. As the name of the archetype implies, it's an aggressive submachine gun, best used in close quarters, or more specifically, point blank. You want to shoot a burst of submachine gun into them, and then punch them and melee them for the kill, and if you activate Grave Robber, it should reload about half your magazine back, and you can keep the carnage going. These are best paired with Syntheseps, and if you trigger biotic enhancements, which you can see on the bottom left of my screen, it just takes one shot, maybe 2 shots of the SMG if they're body shots, and then a punch to secure the kill. But don't feel like you have to use Titan with Syntheseps. You can use Titan with anything. You can use Hunter, Top Tree Arcstrider, and go melee a lot of things. You can use Voidwalker with Winter's Guile and go ham. The best part is, if you have an aerial playstyle, there's a chance that you hit the Seraph round RMG and, melt them just a little bit faster. I briefly mentioned Threat Detector, and that's really what makes this one stand out and deserves such a high rank on my countdown. That's because Threat Detector tells you the amount of people up to 2 next to you. It says Threat Detector times 1 or Threat Detector times 2. So in the competitive playlist where no radar exists, you can use this to infer a lot of information. And if you also have the Syntheseps, you now know when you're surrounded by 1 person, 2 people, or when biotic enhancements proc 3 people. I'm still pretty confident that even when the Forsaken drops, this weapon will still be a contender on most likely the next countdown. Almost done here. In the number 2 spot, we have the Graviton Lance. Instead of going over the perks or whatever, I think it's best if I just walk you through what's happening on the screen here, and you'll see pretty much all the strengths of Graviton Lance appear. So here we go. Opening engagement, watch the TTK. It's going to be fast. 1, 2, 3. Done. I can count. It kills in 3 bursts. It does not have range drop-off. In fact, its catalyst actually boosts the range, thus improving the target acquisition. Now, while on paper this is called a pulse rifle, it kind of feels like a scout rifle. It shoots a burst of 2, where one of the bullets does massive damage and the other not so much. And if you get a kill, it creates explosions, as you can see on the screen. Watch the instant replay. So it shoots a burst of 2 bullets, and the bullets are very, very tightly packed together, so it's kinda hard to miss both of them. So let's go ahead and recap what you've already seen in this clip. You saw me 3 burst a person, and I didn't even need 3 headshots, because if they have less than 5 resilience, you can do 2 head, 1 body shot, so that's already very forgiving, very, very nice. It has a very, very slight, almost not noticeable faster TTK over other pulses, but it has no damage drop off and very, very tight together packed bullets, so that it's treated more like a scout rifle. So essentially, think of it as a scout rifle with pulse rifle TTK. And then you can see why everybody and their mother uses this weapon in the Crucible. But that's not the only thing. There's still more. I mean, what do people complain about in this game again? Team shot. Thank you, Cammy's Conscience. Yes, people complain about team shot, aka people tightly packed together shooting in the same general direction, which is a very effective strategy for a lot of first-person shooters, by the way, but it annoys people in Destiny particularly extra for some reason. So a good way to combat this is to use Graviton Lance, because if you get a kill with Graviton Lance, the person explodes, thus doing damage to the unfortunate teammate who happens to be standing next to them attached to the hip. So let me hammer it in one more time, lightning fast. It's a scout rifle light gun with a pulse rifle TTK, no range drop off, and now you can combat team shotting by creating a void explosion whenever you kill somebody. I'll take 12. The sound of the Graviton Lance firing is something that now appears in my nightmares. Like, that sound is so annoying, and everybody uses it. Fantastic. And finally, in the number 1 spot, the Antiope-D. Antiope. I don't know. All I know is it gives the D. Because it has like a little dash with... you guys know what I meant. I have talked about this gun too much on this channel. Kill clip, ricochet rounds, a choice of 2 great sights, but you're probably going to go with the medium zoom to decrease damage drop off. Its precision frame, so the recoil is very manageable with a very competitive 600 RPM. Some of you may be questioning my decision to put this gun over the Graviton Lance, but that's because this is a legendary and it feels exotic to me because it's very, very it hits all the high points for me. The only obvious negative is handling, but you can mitigate that with Peacekeepers, you can sprint cancel, you can wear Ophidian aspects, or you could just not really care about the handling because you're getting so much else in other categories. I'll just hit them one by one. So the base model of the gun, 600 RPM with a precision frame, which means the recoil is very manageable, which translates to a pretty reasonable hipfire as well, which you typically do with an SMG to keep your radar open and to strafe a little bit faster and have a wider field of view. All advantages of hipfiring. If you land headshots, you'll drop them in around 0.9 seconds, so a very competitive time to kill for an SMG, but it also has kill clips, so if you get a kill, then reload, you can drop them in 0.7. You would think range would be an issue with the submachine gun, but remember, it has ricochet rounds and a medium zoom scope, so it's more just like an auto rifle that doesn't know it's a submachine gun, or a submachine gun that doesn't know it's an auto rifle. You understand what I'm getting at. You might be wondering why I mention ricochet rounds when mentioning range. That's because ricochet rounds acts as a poor man's rangefinder, thus decreasing range drop-off even further, in addition to also bouncing off the walls to maybe hit a target around the corner. Easy, just hit headshots. Omega. Just hit headshots. Just hit headshots. Oh, I got him! Successfully hitting somebody around the corner is one of my favorite things to do in this game, so I usually freak out every time I do it. My recommendation for a masterwork is either going to be in reload to activate kill clip faster, or handling to mitigate the low handling stat. Since the beginning of Destiny 2, the Antiope has remained one of the best weapons, and I think even moving on to the Forsaken, it's still going to be here, because I do imagine that with a high impact snipe, body shotting, then sprint swapping to your Antiope to pick up a kill clip with a reduced time to kill from the Forsaken overhaul, Now you have kill clip activated too. Antiope is going to tear. And you don't even have to worry about ammo, because you're only using one special weapon. Now, there may be a better SMG in the Forsaken that appears. Something that's, the same archetype, the same perks, but with an additional perk. Maybe it exists. But for now, I say get your hands on an Antiope, because it's already out of the box fantastic. And if you're doubting why this is number one, it's because this is a natural pairing with the Grav Lance. You use your Grav Lance, which doesn't have range drop off, at your extended, very, very far engagements, and you use Antiope, which is not only great in close quarters, but can even cover some of that mid-distance where it's more difficult to duel with the Grav Lance. So the pair makes so much sense. But let's say it's a close quarters map and you have no need for Grav Lance. Well, then you throw on a hand cannon like Jack Queen King, that also has ricochet rounds and punches way out of its weight class for range as a hand cannon. And it's a legendary, so you can use something asinine like a tractor cannon. At this point, I think I'm done with this countdown. I'm done talking about the Antiope, but I do want to talk about the state of Destiny 2 and where it's going forward for just a brief moment, because I feel like this lends to the history and perspective of where these weapons happen to land in this countdown. So to a viewer or myself watching this many months from now, many years from now, let me note that in the Warmind DLC, yeah, there were primaries, but there was a lot of power ammo. This was not the same Destiny 2 beta I played. This was not the same Destiny launch I played, where your first idea was to use a primary. In my opinion, Destiny 2 Warmind has a little bit too much abundance of power ammo and ability spam, and less, emphasis on using a primary weapon. Now, universally, the TTK has fell a little, but exotic weapons are now the kings of their respective archetypes. They should have a faster TTK, or they should be easier to use, or have some distinct advantage. So that's the first time this has really been the case. Because in Destiny 1, a lot of people felt like they didn't have to use an exotic at all. In fact, a lot of the most competitive loadouts didn't involve an exotic at all. Minus, of course, the last word in Thorn. So what I'm alluding to is that, compared to my other countdown videos of primary weapons, I didn't enjoy the Warmind version as much because it sort of seems like a half-cooked, half-baked version of where Destiny should be. And I think Forsaken is pushing it to 100%. Warmind gives me a vibe where it's like, it's trying to be fun with the PvP, but it's also, trying to be competitive, whereas Forsaken just says, you know what, forget this competitive nonsense, we're, switching gears and going 100% into fun. Because it actually makes sense the way that it's balanced, because in the current state, the TTK cannot really shut down the abundance of power weapons, but since, Forsaken's giving everybody a power weapon all of the time, it's natural that the TTK has to drop, and that makes a lot of sense. Very, very glad that's happening. So I guess the question is, how many years until Destiny players are sick of whatever happens in the Forsaken? Till they're sick of snipers in the back of the map or shotgun rushing apes? How long will it take? I'm perfectly okay playing Forsaken. I'll have a lot of fun. I'm perfectly okay playing Destiny 2 Vanilla. What I'm not too fond of, though, is the in-between balance of Warmind, I hate to say. It did a lot in terms of replayability for the game, but it kind of hurt me in the PvP department. Well, that concludes this video, so I sincerely hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please share it with a friend. I always enjoy expanding my audience, because I feel like it leads to more opportunities of me learning by just browsing the comment section and saying, hey, this guy kind of makes a lot of sense. Thank you, random person, for teaching me something new. And then, there's the person who's like, fuck you, Cammy, but you're not going to be that guy today. Thanks. Rico!